Welcome to Let's Talk Near Death, the podcast show where we talk about life, death, and experiences somewhere in between. My name is Kirsty Salisbury, the host of the show, and I welcome you to join me as I talk to everyday people with not so everyday experiences. You may also wish to join the conversation on the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page or access additional VIP content as a premium subscriber via Patreon. For just a couple of dollars a month, you can get an early access to episodes, additional bonus content, and your chance to connect with my guests. To do so, simply visit patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. Let's talk near death.
I literally began leaving my body, and my soul was lifting through the top of my head. An idea came to my mind, and I said, "Am I dead? Is this heaven?" It stopped, and I am now surrounded by beings of light.
Welcome back to the Let's Talk Near Death podcast. My guest today is Susie Levan. Susie had a near-death experience in 1988 as part of a very traumatic situation which left her and her 7-year-old daughter trapped in the boot of a car. During her NDE, Susie visited heaven, and then she returned back a radically changed human being. So Susie, as I'm saying these words introducing you, I'm struggling to come to terms with the context of the situation surrounding your experience. So firstly, welcome to the show, and secondly, I just want to acknowledge you for coming on and recalling this experience with us.
Kirsty, thank you so much. It's humbling to be able to communicate and talk about my experience, and I was given a huge gift by having had a near-death experience, even though I know that in some cases it's not the best situation. But for me, I was a victim of a crime. We had 3 gunmen. My husband at the time was a banker, and we're still married, but he was a banker at the time is what I meant to say. He would not be happy if I said that. However, we were only married 90 days when this occurred.
Oh, wow.
So my 7-year-old was from a previous marriage, and we had 3 gunmen come into our home. And they told us that they were robbing the bank in the morning and not to worry about anything. And of course, at 5 o'clock in the morning, pitch black outside, they tell us to get up out of our room. And of course, it's not like we slept or anything. And get dressed as if my husband was going to work. And I should get dressed and get my daughter dressed. And I assumed we had a two-story house, that they were going to leave us downstairs waiting as insurance, if you will. But it turns out that they wanted us to get in the car. I went to go open the back. It was a 4-door sedan. I went to go open the back door when he turned around and he said to me, No, you're going in the trunk.
Oh, no.
So I looked at my 7-year-old. It was very dark outside, no lights, because they wanted to do this, obviously, without anyone seeing us. And I looked at her. She looked at me. And for some reason, I think I had this spiritual moment that said to me, "Tell her you're playing hide and go seek," which is what I said. I said, "Oh, don't worry, sweetheart. We're going to be playing hide and go seek, and you're with mommy." And she totally bought it. I chose not to be crying or filled with stress or anxiety. I was very calm. I forced myself to do everything in my power so as not to traumatize her.
Yeah.
And so there we were now in the trunk of the car. So they closed the trunk, or as you call it, the boot, and we started driving and driving and driving and driving. And I could hear the clippity-clop of the sound of the road, and we just went on and on and on. And we live in Florida, so you can imagine that we were getting a little bit of breeze from underneath the car and a little bit of light from when they were putting their brakes on, a little red light we could see inside the trunk. Mm-hmm. But up to that point, when they would stop, nothing would happen. And I don't know if you've read stories over the years about children that are left in the car, and it doesn't take long for them to die from heat.
Definitely.
And so After hours of driving, I assumed that they were going to leave us to die somewhere when they finally stopped, locked the car, and told me to be quiet because while they were driving, I was singing her songs. I was telling her stories. I was, rubbing her hair. I was doing everything in my power, even though we were lying there in fetal positions, to try and be strong for her. So once they stopped and now there is no air literally coming from underneath or light, I said to myself, I think we probably have been left to die here, and this is our coffin. We are surrounded by this metal coffin, and there's nothing we can do to get out, because this is 1988, long before they now have an opening you can get through from the boot to the back seat, right? So I began to pray. Kirsty, I began to pray the 23rd Psalm. I said to my daughter, Mommy didn't sleep much last night. I don't know if you did, but how about we just close our eyes? Because I felt that we were going to die of asphyxiation, and if we would close our eyes, it would be our last breath, and we would be sleeping. So I heard her fall asleep, and her breath kind of, was shallow, and I know she was asleep. So I began to pray the 23rd Psalm. The Lord is my shepherd; I shall not want. He maketh me lie in green pastures. He leadeth me down the still waters. He restores my soul. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I shall fear no evil. For thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever. Amen. Dear God, take me. My daughter doesn't deserve to die this way. And at that moment, Kirsty, I literally began leaving my body, and my soul was literally lifting through the top of my head. After having said that, I asked God to take me, and he did. Now, I was not a religious person in any way. I knew that prayer because I had gone to many funerals, and I knew it was a very powerful prayer of life and death. And that's why that prayer came to mind. And so I now started literally traveling at 1,000,000 miles a minute through this incredible, bright tunnel of light. Now, mind you, my eyes are closed because they had been closed before my prayer. And my eyes are still closed, yet I can see this tunnel of light. I can see the other side. I can see where I'm heading, yet I can feel that I am just whooshing and traveling at the speed of light. At a certain point, I'm not sure how long I was in this, whooshing, traveling moment, when all of a sudden it stopped, and I am now surrounded by beings of light. These beings of light are emanating this pure love and this energy, and I was at such peace there. I had no fear. I had, it was the most wonderful. There are no words, as you know, to describe this kind of an experience. And it's an experience that I had never read about, didn't know anything about, never heard of. And 1988, it was way before even the word near-death experience even was out there. And I was surrounded by these beings of light, and at some point in time, I feel this very large presence to the right of me. And I turn around, and now mind you, these are light beings. Is really no form. And yet I know that there's this huge form because energetically I can feel him. I say him because he told me his name was Archangel Michael. It was Michael L, spelled Michael. And that he's been with me, watching over me and protecting me for many lifetimes. And that here he was again, surrounding me. So I could see his eyes, if you will. I could see his energy. And yet I don't even know if he was really there. It was a haze. I can't even tell you how to describe it. Yet I knew they were there, as well as the other beings of light. And then an idea came to my mind, and I said, "Am I dead? Is this heaven?" And they telepathically were speaking to me. where they said, "This is you're somewhere on the other side. You are not in heaven, but you are surrounded by love and light and beings of light." And that's who we are. And then what came to me was, well, where's my daughter? And which was just a thought, because everything was thought. My mouth wasn't working. My eyes were actually still closed. I could see through my eyes to see what I was seeing, if that makes any sense at all. And so now they said to me, why don't you are not dead? Because I said, am I dead? Am I in heaven? Where's my daughter? So they said, look down. And I looked down, Kirsty, and I could see my daughter and I still in the trunk of the car, in the boot, still in fetal positions, as if we were asleep. So a little time passes when they start speaking to me metaphysically. I receive a life review. All of a sudden, I see this big white screen where up to that moment in time, they've now displayed my entire life up to that moment. All the people I've hurt, all the things I've said, all the people I've snubbed, all the people I loved, all the people I said good things to, literally a life review. And it was very powerful, very meaningful. And I realized how important forgiveness was, self-forgiveness in particular, and to realize that everything really happens for a reason, and that there was, in reality, nothing to forgive. And that we choose our soul and our life, and that we all have a soul contract, and that everything has been happening to me up to that point of my choice. So if that was true, which I believe wholeheartedly because that's what they told me, then I had nothing to forgive other than for me to see how I can change moving forward, and how I can see how other people felt, because it was important to feel those effects. So after spending a considerable amount of time there and being given lots of different messages and things to come back to do, up to that point, by the way, I was chief operating officer of a public company for 16 years. Totally left brain, really no right brain stuff going on in my life. I'm not joking. Everything was 100% work. So I didn't have time for anything spiritual, metaphysical. And like I said, I really wasn't a religious person to begin with. So all of this is happening to me, at this moment in time. So I'm now told that it was time for me to return, and that I had a lot of different things and a mission that I had to handle when I came back, and that I now had a soul shift. My soul was no longer the same soul that I came up with, and that I would now head back as fast as I was now had gone up. It was almost like they had turned the tunnel upside down, and I'm now heading the other direction. And as quickly as I am now going back, when I finally get back into my physical body, there was a thud, a big thump, large enough and loud enough that my daughter began to cry. I woke her up from the noise, and it was my spiritual body, my soul now getting back into my body. That was the noise, believe it or not. But in fact, there was an additional noise that was really a miracle that we received while we were in the trunk to allow us to live. So if having had the near-death experience wasn't enough, there was now a baseball-size opening in the trunk for us to breathe.
Oh, wow.
Where oxygen was pouring in, where you could see the little particles, sunlight particles, flying into the car. We could see the oxygen. We could see the clouds, the blue sky, the telephone pole.
Wow.
And it was very powerful. And I said to my daughter at that moment, Mommy was just with God and the angels, and we're going to be okay. Daddy's going to come soon. And she started to say, Mommy, I thought we were playing hide and go seek. I don't understand. And I said, I know, sweetheart, we are playing hide and go seek, but soon enough, we'll be out of the trunk. So I knew that Archangel Michael was protecting us by opening this this baseball-sized opening to allow us to breathe, because we were going to be ready to asphyxiate in there. And the heat was beyond, like I said, we're in Florida. So we received this amazing miracle. A little while later, they come and there's the FBI and the police and from all over the place in the press, and you hear the cars and the tires creaking. When now what they do is they unlock the trunk, and we pop out like a jack in the box. And my husband thought for sure we would be dying. We would be dead in the trunk, that we would just be lying there, listless and asphyxiated. He was shocked to see us jump out. When they now are closing the trunk behind us, I am ready to show him this opening that let us survive, when now I'm fingering it and it's totally gone.
Oh, wow. Wow.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes. So, you say to yourself, my goodness, I've now received this amazing gift of being on the other side, gotten a life review, received these messages from these beings of light, had Archangel Michael speak to me, been given a life mission and work to come back now to take care of. And then I've received this miracle to save us. I mean, come on.
How did that make you feel at that point?
I have to tell you, at that point, and I really hadn't given any of that any consideration. My life was at that moment about saving my daughter. Right, yeah. And not traumatizing her. The word kidnapping had never come up. And so I still, at that very moment in time, after we left and got out of the car, I had not dealt with it. So because this was a federal offense, we were now sitting with the FBI. And I was so traumatized myself that not once did I even discuss what actually occurred to me, other than what happened to us with the actual 3 men, because those were the questions that they were asking. And I think if I had even mentioned anything that had occurred, they probably would have put me in some insane asylum.
Oh, definitely back in 1988.
Yeah, like, this woman is crazy, Yeah. And so I don't know if I know for sure that I didn't plan on not telling them. It just did not happen. It just, it wasn't something that came natural. I was so traumatized myself that I was doing everything in my power to just be as clear and honest and give them all the details and everything that I had, heard and seen, and, do what I could. So, what happened to me after we got back home was, first of all, I never went back to work. I realized that I just could not go back to work.
Because you were traumatized, or because of the spiritual change that you'd had?
Well, let me start by first saying, actually, we drove back to our home, which I lived in for 6 years with I have 2 daughters, and I literally fainted in the driveway.
Oh, wow.
My husband picked me up and immediately went into the house, picked up a few things, and took me to a hotel. So I was still traumatized. I was now suffering with post-traumatic stress.
I'm sure.
Which I had for 2 years. So for 6 months, I lived in a hotel. My housekeeper and nanny, which was tied to a sliding shower door while all this was happening, had to pack my entire house and move us to a new house that my husband found for us, which had very high fencing, gates, and I had 24-hour security guards outside my house. So I was a prisoner, mentally, physically, emotionally, and in every which way possible, because I was suffering in ways that I never really suffered before. And to be honest with you, I hadn't even dealt with my near-death experience up to that point.
Was that on your mind, or were you just focused about getting over the traumatic side?
I had no control over what was happening to me.
Right.
I really had no control mentally what was happening to me. I was incredibly depressed. I at some point in time told my husband about the near-death experience, but to be honest with you, it almost took a second a second seat to whatever else I was holding on to. The pain of the trauma that I was holding on to from my daughter was so excruciating. I could hardly walk. I was paralyzed mentally and physically. It was really horrific. And it took me about 2 years to finally find a therapist that was able to help me. We went through hypnotherapy and counseling and different things that really allowed me to heal. And, she taught me how to meditate. And I also had all sorts of effects from not being able to deal with lights and telephones and just the electromagnetic field of my body was weird. I became very psychic. All sorts of things were going on. I found her through a dream because I literally got on my knees and I said, after 2 years, I said, God, I know you didn't bring me back so that I could live this way. I know you gave me a purpose and a mission, and I'm prepared to go and do that, but I just can't. I need help. I can't do this by myself. Please help me. So that night, I hadn't slept in, I'm not kidding you, months and months and months, like a REM sleep. Because every time I closed my eyes, these men were in my face and in my foyer. And no matter what we had moved to or what had happened or what had changed, I was no longer a wife or a mother. I was just useless in bed day in, day out. So it really took its toll on me in so many different ways.
I can only imagine, Susie. It's the experience you've described is so in depth. There's so many elements and different levels to it.
Yeah.
I think you're absolutely amazing to be able to join me today and share this story with us. Your daughter, did she have any kind of experience? Because the oxygen levels would have been pretty low for her too.
Yeah, she never mentioned any, and I was very blessed that she never had a traumatic feeling about it or fear. She ended up finishing high school and college and traveled the world and never had a problem opening the door or had any security issues whatsoever. So I think I did my job, and my job was protecting her 1,000,000%, and I was prepared to die for her. And that's what I asked. That's what I asked God. Take me. She doesn't deserve to die this way.
Yeah, that's amazing. Your strength is incredible. So you talked about how when you were up there with the beings, you got a mission, you got a purpose for your life.
Yes.
Can you remember that? Are you happy to share that with us?
Oh, yes, of course. It was something that I'll always remember. And the mission was to empower women and to also teach meditation, because meditation is about listening and to connect your frequency, lower your frequency, and to really, create a whole new vibration so that you can receive messages from all the beings of light that surround us all the time. And so the message was, just ask and you shall receive, but most of you don't ask. And they said to me, the reason we came to help you was because you asked for help. You said, God, take me. I'm prepared to go. I'm asking for your help. And they said to me, what happens is most people don't ask. They said, we are surrounding all of you. You all have spirit guides. You all have archangels that watch over you, but you have to ask for help. We can't do anything for you unless you ask for help.
Yeah, exactly. That's really helpful. That answered my next question, which was, do you think the experience would have happened the same way had you not said that prayer and asked for help?
It's funny, I've never thought about that, but I'm 100% sure that we would have just died there, I think, if I hadn't prayed and if I hadn't asked for help, because the miracle was the opening of the baseball-sized opening was what saved us. And to me, the gift was, that's what saved us. The gift was that I got to see the other side. I got to be surrounded with beings of light. I got to be given, the life review. I got to enjoy the process of what it is to be free and fearless, because now I'm not afraid of death. I speak my story to so many people who have received, the gift of empowerment from my words, where I teach, personal growth and self-development and metaphysical words that are, powerful for them. And I just feel that, this was the gift that God gave me. And up to that point, Kirsty, I've never done anything like this. I went back to school. I became a pastoral counselor. I became a hypnotherapist, a Reiki master, a life coach, a teacher of meditation, and on and on and on. Things I would have never, ever, ever, ever done had this not occurred to me,
So you were quite radically changed then, for sure.
Oh, I was radically changed. I created the Work-Life Balance Institute for Women, which was all about empowering women. I created a magazine for 10 years called Balance Magazine, which was all about personal growth and self-development for women. I channeled 2 meditation tapes with Stephen Halpern. So, none of these things would have occurred. My life changed for the better, even though it took me a while to find that and to get there and to connect with it. But, what I've learned is that this is part of the journey and part of the process. And in order for you to teach what you have and what you do and who you are, you have to live it.
Absolutely. So following your experience of having this purpose and being given this mission, do you think that that's something that we all have?
100%. And we're born with it, first of all, because one of the things they told me is that we are the ones that are responsible for our soul. Our soul, we sign a soul contract when we enter our physical body. Before we enter our physical body, we have now signed a soul contract. And that soul contract can be anything and everything. It's just really what level you're at, where your soul is at, and what kind of a meaningful life you want to have. And so sometimes people pick the most, horrific situations, and sometimes people pick a beautiful life. And, different religions, different countries, different parents, all of those are chosen by your soul. So where you are today, you have chosen. And your soul knows where it needs to go, even though there's been a million detours in between. And in the end, it'll find where it needs to be. And it has a mission and a purpose. We all do. And it doesn't have to be grand, by the way.
Exactly. We'd have no clue. It might be the smallest of things, but that's our mission, right?
Exactly. And so a lot of people, come to me and say, well, can you tell me what my mission is or my purpose? And I say to them sometimes, your purpose might be just smiling every single day to people everywhere and anywhere you go, changing people's lives by just having a smile. It doesn't have to be this big old grand scenario. And you know what? I think that just allows them to just relax, because in time, they find something that they find that they since they're a child, they had a tremendous amount of connection with. And when they find that, and it's always back to childhood, by the way, because you forget that, because life takes on, starts going, you grow up and then you become a teenager, and then, who has time to think about what you really knew when you were a child? And those thoughts when you were a child really is your life's purpose.
Any insight into why we forget our purpose when we come here? We've got some kind of amnesia. We forget.
That's true.
A lot of stuff. Any insight into why?
Well, it's important for us to find it. It's, that's where the journey is. That's where the lessons are. That's where the process is.
It seems so much easier though if we knew.
Yeah, it was, if they give it to us on a gold platter or silver platter, it really doesn't have the same impact.
Yeah, it's definitely true. And it's all about growth and learning, isn't it? So
yeah. So as you go, and the people that that you find around you, the messages, the books that fall off a bookcase, a song you hear on the radio, a person that you're walking, with all of a sudden mentions something that unexpected. It's about really listening and being attentive to the fact that we are surrounded by these messages every single day. And in those messages, our purpose, our mission keeps showing up.
I love this. I totally agree with you. And this is how I live my life most of the time, is following whatever's talking to me and how I'm feeling inside my heart, my spirit. It's a beautiful way to live.
Right. It is. It's trusting, your intuition.
Exactly.
And it really will amplify a more meaningful life. But a lot of people, unfortunately, just live in the grind and are stuck in the negative. And so I think it's our purpose to keep opening up those doors and those channels for them, no pun intended.
Yeah. So talking about channels, you said that you had some gifts when you got back and you were able to channel different things and you had some psychic abilities.
Yes, very much so.
Are you happy to share more on that with us?
Well, unexpectedly, again, I was never involved in anything spiritual or metaphysical. And I started channeling people that had crossed over for friends and family. And in fact, my daughter grew up with me with a headset on and a tape recorder where I would receive a phone call like every couple of hours to channel someone's loved one. And then I was directed to channel a meditation tape without any notes directly at the studio with Stephen Halpern, who is a New Age musician that all his music is all very metaphysical and very filled with. He is a being of light. There's no doubt in my mind, and so that was a direction that I followed and was able to do meditations for healing stress and meditations for a peaceful heart. And at some point in time, what I said to the universe and God, Goddess, all that is, I said, I know you didn't bring me back here to just be a channel. I know you brought me here for bigger things, and you already told me it was meditation. Okay, I've done my meditation tape. So what do I do with this? And how do I expand it? And so I started a women's wisdom circle. And so it started with 5 women that I was coaching, and then it grew to 10 and 20 and 50, and we meet biweekly. And that started where we were speaking about work and life balance, which then opened up to the Work-Life Balance Institute and Balance Magazine, and everything has had, everything led to the other, if you know what I mean. And so it's not that I shut it off 100%, but I knew that my life's work was not going to be sitting in a room with a headset channeling, beings from the other side. That was not what I knew that I was sent back to do. But I did understand the gift, and I was able to manage it.
And have you had any more glimpses of the other side?
Well, I get messages all the time. I meditate every single day, and my frequency is just very connected to receiving. And so I'm always receiving, and I'm always vibrating in different ways. And so I walk into a room, and I feel the energy. I know what's going on. I feel with conversations. I'm a little almost like people want to be near me, at the same time they think I'm reading their mind.
Yeah.
So that's a little creepy, but unfortunately, last year, my 7-year-old at the time, now 30 years later, passed away of non-Hodgkin's lymphoma.
I'm so sorry, Susie.
Yeah, and she has come to me in so many different ways, Kirsty, and to my puppy, and she is just. I'm blessed that I feel that I know that she is with God, and that she's at peace, and that she's not suffering, and that she's able to communicate with me. But it's been a very hard year.
Can imagine.
But it was because of her, and she has pushed me to finish my book, which just came out a couple of weeks ago. It's called "Getting to Forgiveness: What a Near-Death Experience Can Teach us about loss, resilience, and love."
Oh, wow.
And she was love.
Yeah, that's brilliant. We'll definitely put a link to your book in the notes so that our listeners can go and have a look at that.
Thank you.
Did you get the chance to share any of your experience with your daughter? Is it something that you talked about with her?
Oh, sure. She remembered it vividly, the opening in the trunk. And we talked about it, obviously when she was a child. I took her to psychotherapists so that she can have the conversation. And she didn't seem to have any residual effects from it. And was very comfortable, but was able to talk about it just like I'm saying it to you without any emotion.
Yeah.
Because to her, it was, we were playing hide and go seek.
That is absolutely amazing. It was just incredible, your protection methods, to be thinking that way when you're in a hostage situation. I mean, it's blowing my mind.
Thank you. The truth is you never know how you're going to react. This is not something you can plan for. And it's certainly not something that I would have ever thought in my wildest dreams would ever happen to us. But however, I will say that I wouldn't change it for anything in the world.
Oh, isn't that interesting?
Well, I mean, look at what's happened to my life. Look at what I've been able to experience. Look at how different my life has become because of the gift and the crime. So, had it not been for that, I would still be probably working in my job, living in my old house, and everything was tra-la-la. And I feel that I think this just accelerated my life's work, my life's purpose, and my life's mission. And I was only 38 years old at the time. And I think it was just, it just had to be. And because we do pick our soul purpose and our soul contract, I think that my soul said, if we don't do it now, it's never going to happen.
So do you believe that you wrote this in before coming to this lifetime?
Absolutely.
I find this so interesting.
I wouldn't have said that before.
Right. But you probably weren't aware of it before, right?
Exactly. And listen, I wasn't aware of 99% of the things that I talk about today.
Yeah.
Like I said, I was a businesswoman, 100% glued to my work and moving up the ladder and continuing to get through, the glass ceiling. That was my life's work. And so for me, this was so out of character, so out of left field, and beyond anything that I would have imagined my life to become. And thank God my husband is still my husband. He never left me. He paid great attention to how I can heal and how he could help me. And, he had to go through his own ordeal. And I had to go through mine. Yeah.
Yeah. No, I can understand. We've probably only just touched on the very tip of your experience right here.
Exactly.
In terms of the hostage itself, the recovery, everything that followed that.
Right.
But Susie, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on. It's been an incredible story. I've had goosebumps so many times through your conversation with me. And, I just feel that there's something amazing going on. And I'm so excited to hear about your life and what you've been able to do since that experience. So thank you for sharing your story.
It's been my honor. Thank you for having me, Kirsty. Love and light to you and to your listeners.
Thanks for joining me on this episode of the Let's Talk Near Death podcast show. If you've enjoyed it, please share it with your friends, tell people about it. I'd love to get these messages out there. Don't forget you can also pick up your VIP access pass for additional content at patreon.com/Kirsty Salisbury. You can connect with us via the Let's Talk Near Death Facebook page, and I look forward to catching you for another episode soon.